Interestingly, the permanent leader of the Romanian Communist Party, Nicolae Ceausescu, was initially a compromise candidate for the post of chairman of the Central Committee. Few could have imagined that a charisma-deprived, unattractive and stammering politician would stay at the helm of the country for 24 years. But Ceausescu was not so simple. First, the genius of the Carpathians eliminated all influential political rivals, and then placed his numerous relatives and close associates in high government positions. The Ceausescu regime was guarded day and night by the secret police, the sinister Securitate. It was rumored that almost every fifth Romanian worked for it. Dracula's homeland seemed to be an unshakable bastion of socialism even in the late 80s of the last century, when a wave of velvet revolutions swept across Eastern Europe. How did the unshakable system collapse in Romania in a matter of days, and how did the yesterday's leader of the nation end up against the wall? The bloodiest revolution in Eastern Europe began on the 16th of December 1989. The occasion was not entirely political. In the city of Timisoara, the authorities tried to evict an opposition Hungarian pastor from his home. Not only Hungarian parishioners but also ordinary Romanians, exhausted by the difficult economic situation in the country, stood up for the bishop. The original reason for the protest was quickly forgotten. Thousands of citizens took to the streets with anti-government slogans and started smashing local Communist Party offices. The army attempted to suppress the uprising, but the brutal crackdown caused even greater outrage throughout the country. Mass riots swept Romania, and on the evening of the 21st of December fighting between protesters and the police was already taking place in the very center of Bucharest. On the morning of the 22nd of December, Nicolae and Elena Ceausescu tried to leave the country by helicopter, but after a forced landing were detained by the military in the town of Târgoviște. The army had already switched to the side of the rebels. The first persons of socialist Romania, accustomed to luxury and comfort, spent their last days in a soldier's barracks. Immediately after the couple fled the capital, the revolutionaries took over. The Romanian provisional government included both oppositionists and dissidents, as well as yesterday's Ceausescu's proxies among politicians and military officers. It is hard to imagine such a lightning-fast coup without the betrayal of the elites. And it happened. Almost all of his high-ranking associates turned their backs on the dictator. Victor Nicolae, a general who was considered one of the most loyal military officers to the Romanian president, is a case in point. On December 17, Ceausescu ordered him to suppress the unrest in Timisoara, and later appointed Nicolae as acting Minister of Defense. On December 22, the general joined the revolutionaries and 3 days later organized the trial of the deposed leader. The revolutionaries decided not to postpone Ceausescu's trial. There were fears that the Securitate staff loyal to the leader might release Nicolae and Elena. In addition, the insurgents were in a hurry to demoralize the resisting supporters of the state system. In fact, the fate of the Ceausescu couple was sealed even before the trial. The show trial was just a protocol formality to justify the execution of the former leader of the country and his all-powerful wife. The session of the hastily organized tribunal began on the 25th of December 1989 in the same military barracks in Târgoviște. Not even a week later, the new authorities had time to assess the scale of the deposed president's deeds. Ceausescu was accused of the deaths of 60,000 Romanians and of having hundreds of millions of dollars in foreign banks. The tribunal was more like a poorly choreographed play than a fair trial. There was no smell of law there. The trial was held without preliminary investigation, no evidence of the defendant's guilt was provided, and none of the witnesses were summoned by the court. The Ceausescu couple were not allowed to choose a lawyer. Lawyer Nicolae Ceausescu met with his clients only 10 minutes before the trial and did not have time to familiarize himself with the case materials. The defense lawyer suggested that the defendants cling to the only possibility of avoiding execution and admit to being mentally ill. Ceausescu considered this an insult and withdrew his defense. The defendants were constantly interrupted and tried to get rid of the boorish treatment. Ceausescu refused to recognize the legitimacy of the court and did not answer most of the questions, which did not affect the outcome of the hearing. Nicolae and Elena were found guilty and sentenced to capital punishment. The sentence was immediately carried out on the territory of the military unit. Almost 35 years have passed since that day. Many participants and witnesses of the grim historical event had time to talk to the press. After the 1989 revolution, all subsequent Romanian leaders tried to demonize Ceausescu in the eyes of the people. But it turned out that the politician never had Swiss bank accounts, and the number of victims during the December events was greatly exaggerated. It is curious that today a significant part of Romanian society favorably assesses Ceausescu's role in the country's history, and fresh flowers always lie on his tomb in Bucharest. Was he really such a bloody tyrant?